Ignite, sparked by BBB, where conversations are taking place to change the future.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to BBB Sharing. This is Joshua, and today I'm here with Trent Noel. How are you doing today?
Doing good, man.
Good. I'm glad you came in for a spark conversation today.
Yes, I
So,
came in on the tail end, but I'm very appreciative to finally make my way down here. Yes.
okay. And I heard you a little bit. I was listening to you talking to Eddie, and it sounds like you got the concept of what was going on and what Ignite was.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I was sharing with Envy, this is something I talk about passionately every day. I wake up and sleep about the mental illness is what the topic was for
Hmm.
this spark conversation. And so mental illness, trauma, how we deal with that. I mean, especially in the Black community is something that we lack the educational piece or the belief that the resource is not there for us. And so being a Black man, I feel like I'm obligated to, not just focus on, obviously my people, but I do feel like it's an obligation to help my people being able to get out of the thought of that there's no help because I have
Hmm.
mental illness. And then, of course, me being a barbershop owner, you know, 75% of my clientele or customers or come through my establishment is, minority.
There's
So
always help. So it's just trying to, find it and like where to go. That's
yeah,
always the main thing because there is help out there.
no, it is. And I always say too, being a barber is not just about, cutting hair. I mean, being a barber is, basically being community, right?
Hmm.
We talked about it, we was talking about it after the spark had ended. We talked about how important family is. Like family is so important to where it really is the foundation of how you do everything and what is the why and the reason, right? Of why I wake up every day to hopefully to make someone happy. So, I mean, I'm on the happy thing. I want to make people happy.
Good. I think I hope, not everybody, but most people, I think, want to do that at the end of the day. But I think for barbershops, for me, it is more of it's a therapy session. Because, like, especially if you go to the same one, you're not worried about getting your hair messed up. You just want to see that person again. You just want to, look nice and you trust that
Sure,
person to
sure.
do the job. And, you talk to them, you strengthen that relationship.
Yeah. And as I was talking about earlier before we came on the podcast, is that having A-class marketing, which every business you look at the NFL, if you look at Starbucks, McDonald's, Walmart, what makes them the premier business in their space is because of marketing. Now, we're marketing to a specific audience. We have a specific niche. So once we able to get into that niche in our market to get consumers to exchange, because this be real, anything that you do as far as business, there's going to be an exchange. And so we understand that it's going to be a transitional exchange of finance, but there is a exchange of being able to win trust, right?
Hmm.
So what we talk about in the barber industry, like any business, especially when it's a service business, is that you have to be able to build rapport. And building rapport is basically having a relationship. So it gets into a point of where it's more than just coming and getting a haircut.
Hmm.
People are coming to see me or to see Cutz and Restore Image to be able to get an experience. That experience could be different from everybody, but more than not, that experience is going to be, man, I'm going through something in my marriage, Josh. Trent, how can I deal with my wife? And so with me being the guy that I am, and me like talking and like dealing with issues that matters, I said, well, what did you do?
Yeah.
But you start a conversation and what that does, and because we don't have a lot of time, but the point and the ideal here is that you're building that trust with your client.
Hmm.
And then with that, you're building rapport, and which then eventually turns into a relationship.
I like that, yeah. Because even though there's so many barbershops out there, nobody, else has those conversations that you do with every conversation is different.
Yeah,
Everyone has that different
sure.
relationship with you, and building that is very important. Yeah.
Yeah,
Having those deep conversations is it's gonna be
yeah.
good. But I like how you circle back and help that person reflect on the actions that they've taken. I think that's very important.
Yeah, it is. I mean, because by nature, right, no one wants to be wrong.
Hmm.
There's nothing wrong with that. But what's wrong with that is the idea that you can't be wrong. In fact, and what I tell everybody, I says, look, I don't say things in the spirit of debate or whatever the case may be. I don't speak to say that I'm wrong. I speak because I believe that I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
But here's what I'm getting at though. If someone can persuade me that what I'm saying is not right and they can back that up with sources, with experience and all that, the greatest thing that any one of us can do is say, you know what? I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Josh, why is that so important?
Why saying you're wrong is so important?
Yeah, to acknowledge that you're wrong.
Mm-hmm. I want to say a vulnerability part because
Sure.
everybody is, what you just said, everybody's going to be wrong. Everyone's going to make mistakes. The difference is the people who are going to say they're wrong. Like, I think
Yeah,
it's the authenticity and the vulnerability part.
sure.
Who can you be real with?
Yeah,
And when they be real with you, there's that door that opens where, okay,
sure.
I can kind of be a little bit more real with that person. And it's taking the first step. That's me.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to the whole building rapport and building trust, right? So if I'm a person that's on record to say Trent disacknowledged that he was wrong, excuse me, what that does to the person that I'm conversating with is that he has the ability to acknowledge when he's wrong, which means he has a healthy attitude that also can insinuate that he's not prideful.
Mm,
It also can say, you know what? That's a good character trait because, as I said it before, no one by their nature, by their natural consumption of who they are, wants to be wrong. Everybody wants to be right.
hmm
And the truth of the matter is, we're more wrong than we are right.
Yeah, I could
And
see.
watch this, even when you acknowledge that you're wrong, guess what you really are? You're right. See, there you go. I just proved to you that I'm a person that believes that I'm right.
hmm
Even when I'm wrong, guess what? I'm still right. You never heard that, did you? Think about it.
I've heard it from my dad describing my mom, but that's about it.
Yes, we say, even when I'm wrong, I'm still right. It's
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah, I believe in what you
Yeah.
say.
It's like, even if I'm doing wrong, there's a right way of doing wrong. You
hmm
hear that concept?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've heard that before.
yeah. It's the same. The thing that keeps the boundary of that is that you're not oblivious
Mm.
of being wrong.
Now,
Yeah.
does that wrong and right statement, does that kind of come into the thought process of how we perceive reality different than others? Or is it just the fact of because we're learning day by day, even though we're wrong, we're right?
You just said a key point, and what I mean by even that I wake up every day that I'm right,
hmm
but I'm aware that I could be potentially be wrong.
hmm
And if somebody can prove that I'm wrong, and I acknowledge and I actually say, you know what, I apologize. I was wrong in the way I saw that, or whatever the case may be. What I'm getting to is I'm right.
hmm
What I'm saying is we have to learn how to be able to grow. And now I'm gonna get into how we grow is we say learning from your mistakes.
hmm
Like I can't grow if I'm always right. If me and you are playing, I'm a chess player.
Yeah.
If I'm a better chess player than you, and if I'm always beating you, there's no growth for me, but there's growth for you
hmm
because there's challenges now that you have to now learn how to become a better chess player to be able to come up with a game plan to eventually put me in checkmate.
Okay.
So use that the same way in life. what happens is, Josh, let's look at it the other way. When you got somebody who always believes that they're right, but in really reality, they're wrong,
Mm-hmm.
what is that?
Hmm.
The Bible talks about it. That's a person who's very high-minded.
Mm-hmm.
That's someone that could be maybe a symptom of disorder of narcissist.
Yeah.
That could be a symptom of someone who, watch this, who has camouflage. And I think we was talking about it earlier. Nihilist paralysis, the fear of dealing with their real self, right?
Mm-hmm.
We always say if someone is poor in self-examination, he's going to be poor in acknowledging when he's wrong. Because a real person is always going to be willing to self-examine where did I make my mistakes or how can I grow? This is why I was saying the very essence of making mistakes is the first indication of where you need to grow at.
Wow.
Wow. Like we are taught, you probably now know that I'm kind of all over the place.
You're good.
But when we are taught in school, I'm getting into the fear because we're talking about procrastination, and that could be a form, which it is. And I
Mm-hmm.
was shaking my head and was like, that's absolutely right. Procrastination is really fear of dealing with on the other side that you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing we do in life. We want to put things under the rug and don't deal with our issues. And we
Yeah.
expect those problems to go away. Well, we all know that's the first indicator that person is not willing to grow. That person also believe in their own mind and own world that they're never wrong. That
Mm-hmm.
gets into the whole depth of their disorder and their reality of reality. And so when we're in school, the way school sets things up is, and we all, right? We got the smart kids, they're always A's, B's, we envy, we're jealous. And I'm like, I'm getting C's and D's, more D's and F's, right? And I'm like, must be something wrong with me. I'm stupid. And so what happens is because I'm not really being told,
Mm-hmm.
me getting D's and F is actually a great thing. Now, why would that be a great thing?
Opens yourself up to learn a little bit more.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
The definition of learning is to master what you're learning.
Mm-hmm.
All that basically saying is that I just haven't learned this. Just because someone else is passing doesn't necessarily mean that person is smarter than me. And this is where I'm saying that how we have not been taught properly of making mistakes or not passing a certain test has nothing to do with your mental capacity to learn. Because then I can now scale that thing and saying, well, that could be a bad teacher.
Mm-hmm.
It could be I'm just not into what is being taught.
That's true.
Or I learn differently. We got extrovert, introvert, right? I learn differently. I'm a visual guy. I like things visual.
Mm-hmm.
So someone that not doing visual stuff, I might be slower than someone who likes content, where you can just read it, put on the board with words and contents, and boom, they're able to process that.
Okay. Especially if you have like, like 100 people in those lecture halls and it's like you think everyone's gonna learn the same way.
Yeah, and what I mean by the teacher could be a bad. We know speaking in an audience. Me being a speaker, being a pastor, preacher. Okay, I understand that I have to know. And the first thing, I don't care if you're in if you're taking a reading course or a communication course, right, which I have. The first thing you got to know is, well, first thing is you got to know what you're talking about. The secondly, you have to know your audience because what I may can say for a demographic of people in their 50s, in their 70s, it's going to be quite different from people in their 20s, in their
Yeah.
30s, because they're on a different wavelength as far as learning or experience and all that. So that's the first thing. When I go into any room that I'm speaking at, I already know my stuff because I prepared. The second thing is knowing my audience. because I got to be able to facilitate with clarity and with simplicity on being able to persuade them into what I'm trying to present. When we get into marketing or we get into art negotiations, like some real estate agent, a real estate investor,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the hardest thing in negotiating and communicating is dealing with a seller to persuade them to sell their apartment complex.
Really
Absolutely.
interesting.
Do you,
Why?
well, number one is you're dealing with the investment person. If I'm an investor and you're an investor, but you're trying to sell your investment property, you're going to want the most for what you're trying to get for it.
Okay.
What I have to convey is that your commercial property is not worth what you're suggesting that I should purchase it.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to have the art of being able to be persuasive, but being engaging,
Yeah.
but being very precise on why I need to buy at this price. Because when I get that commercial property, I know as an investor, there's a lot of things I got to analyze. In fact, before I even talk to that seller, I got to know that property. I got to know that market.
Okay.
I got to know what that property is really worth.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to be able to go into that conversation with that all in play, but being able to build that rapport,
I see.
being able to trustworthy. Because watch this, and here's the other flip side of that, Josh. I'm not the only investor that he's talking to. It could be very well that he wants to see that I have the capability to take down a 100-unit apartment complex. He may not think that I have the knowledge or experience. So why would he waste his time? So I have to keep him engaged mentally for him to even begin to even thinking about going to the title company and being able to sign their agreement, purchase agreement.
Thinking about all that, and I think staying genuine at the same time speaks volumes.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because one of, me being an honest man, and when we're dealing with negotiating, when we're dealing with marketing, communicating, it is some form of manipulation. Anybody that's selling you in sales,
Mm-hmm.
they will say that it has to be a good portion of manipulation. But where I derive, I try not to be so manipulative because we know that can go into a whole nother,
Yeah.
because your reputation's on the line and everything.
You've gotta, for whatever you're selling with it, you do have to believe it to
Sure.
some degree. So you don't necessarily have to be disingenuous about it, you know? But yeah, it's just like, getting your points across, and it's like, are they willing to hear you out about that?
Yeah. And so one of the things, and again, as there's a lot of things that I can get into, but one of the things when we're talking about in the investment world of dealing with someone, when we talk about this in a stress situation, that's where the leverage comes in. Mm-hmm. So if you got someone, and we're talking about the 5 things that why people will sell their home or their commercial property. One is natural causes, whether it's their health or something of that nature, which may give them a reason why they want to sell their property. Mm-hmm. Number 2, unfortunately, divorce. Okay, if you're divorced and you're going through a whole lot, it may not make sense for them to hold on to that property. Yeah. So that's another reason of the stress. It could be loss of job. Okay. It could be a tired landlord. He's tired, or he's a tired investor. Mm-hmm. And he's just trying to, he's on his last phase of life. And so he's just trying to sell his portfolio and basically go down to Arizona or Florida, whatever the case may be. And so you have, and then it's the other one, the last of the 5 is, mm-hmm, the property is in bad condition and he doesn't have the money, or he doesn't have the the energy to put money into it.
Okay.
So these are usually the 5 reasons. There's a couple other, but those are your 5 reasons why a seller might call me about selling their property. And so I got to know, and this is why we say that's going to help shape how I engage, because someone who's going through divorce is not going to have the same mindset as someone who's tired landlord.
Huh.
Someone who is having financial situations is not going to be the same as someone who's having, the roof is coming.
Yeah.
You can see the roof through the sunlight. I mean, you can see the sunlight through the roof. So we start with that, and this goes back to being genuine, but at the same time, you have to kind of squeeze that reality, right?
I can see that.
We have a term for that. This is high level negotiating, high level communication, because you're dealing with the fear and anxiety, but they're in a desperate situation, which we a lot of times will say, well, what phase are they in? Are they in a pre-foreclose? Are they in the pre-foreclose, or are they actually in foreclosure? Obviously, in foreclosure, they have no leverage.
Yeah.
They have no time, because either, okay, you go in foreclose, or you allow me to consume the loan.
One or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I have the strategy to get things settled quick. So yeah, so just getting into understanding, knowing your audience, and knowing how to communicate, in which I'm now, being, a speaker, preacher, being an investor, guess, and do Myron Golden is a guy that I would suggest everyone to listen to. And he has a YouTube video, and he deals with real estate, building wealth. But, of course, his foundation is, of course, being, a believer, a Christian. But he says a lot of good concepts when he talks about his, um, the landscape of society. And he says this. He says there's 4 levels of the workplace. Number 1 is labor, working with your hands. He says that's a form of expression, but as we know, it's the lowest level of occupation, right? If you're a janitor, if you're a construction worker or a general labor, we know that your pay scale, we're talking, is only going to be a certain bracket between minimum wage and what? 70, 60,000, right? And we know in the society we're living in now, 60,000 probably not
That
gonna
might
make
get
it.
you an apartment.
Yeah, maybe. That is if you got another partner that can, that's making the same amount or even more.
Yeah.
So you got a total of a household that's making 120. That's still gonna be tough, especially if your lifestyle is not concurrent to the reality of what you're in, as far as the occupation that you're in.
Okay.
But think about it. Working with your hands, working with your feet takes no what? Skill.
I can see that. I would say you have some skill now. Well,
No,
I guess depending on what you do. But
yeah,
I can
but
see what you mean. Like, there's no level of like having to communicate or
training,
connect to people.
there's no, yes, you got to learn how to take boulders into a wagon and take it up the hill.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it doesn't take no formal skill, maybe what I should say. There's no higher education that you have to take.
It's like a do this, you can do it, cool.
Yes, it's labor. It doesn't
Yeah.
take any special skill or higher learning.
Okay.
Now, the second level is, as I just said, is to get a trade or to get higher education to where you can work maybe as in a corporal setting, right? Or be a leader or a foreman. And even in those jobs, guess what it takes? It takes a degree, it takes a certification or a license or something of that nature, and your max salary on that, guess what it is? It's between 60 to 70, possibly to 100,000.
Huh. No,
See, this is something
I
that
can see that.
we're not being told. We do it because we're told, but we don't know why we're being told.
Yeah.
See, by me laying this out, it kind of gives you some clarity. And by the way, this for the viewers and everyone that's listening. Um, I'm not saying it's wrong or you're a bad person of being a labor worker. It's not my objective here. Or that you went to George Mason and got a degree and you're working in that field, kudos, right? And you're making decent money, making maybe 90,000 a year. I'm not at all throwing any, as we say, any dirt or any
No
cash,
shade.
shade on
Yeah.
those people who's working in those fields. What I'm getting at is if we're not fulfilled,
Yeah.
if we're not happy, and although all those things are servable jobs, but the reason you're not getting ahead is because there is no level
Mm-hmm.
of growth there. Those two levels are already mapped out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, guess what the third? We're talking about, look at this, building a picture if we're climbing up the ladder.
Mm-hmm.
So we just talked about general labor, 60 minimum wage of 60, 70,000, give or take. And then we're talking about getting a trade, getting a license of some sort, or getting a college degree. You'll make between 70, 80, starting off to low six figures, right? Are you tracking? But what would be the third level? Take a wild guess.
I guess it would just be your leaders. I'm
No,
thinking.
leaders are in the higher learning.
Oh, they are in the
Yeah,
higher.
they can, I mean, okay, so they can, if you,
I'm thinking like business owners.
yeah, I'm saying if you're a corporate leader in Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
you're probably making high six figures, maybe seven figures.
Yeah.
But that's a rare thing. So I'm
Okay.
just trying to get, generally speaking, most people, if you got a college degree, if you got a trade like I do, I
Mm-hmm.
got a license in barbering, okay, I'm generally going to make between, again, there's some outliers out there,
Yeah.
sure. But I'm saying, generally speaking, you're going to make between 70 to 120,000, which is not bad. Okay, you got your degree. You went to the military. I got a lot of clients, military, retired military, they go work through the government.
Mm-hmm.
Got a government job, maybe a contract, or whatever the case may be. They're making low six figures.
Okay.
See that?
Yeah.
I don't care.
I
However
can
you
see
look
that.
at it,
Yeah.
you're going to make in between that range.
Mm-hmm.
But the third,
I don't know. What would it be?
take one more guess.
Man, you getting me out now.
When I say this it's going to what it's going to do is going to reassess the way you see things.
Mm-hmm. Well, because what I'm thinking is, of course, like it's a level of consciousness is what I'm thinking of.
Getting
That's in
close.
relation to the ratio of your salary, pretty much. So depending on what you do and like the level of consciousness or communication it takes, is the higher your salary is going to be.
Say that again,
You-
because my mind went somewhere, but I
Yeah,
say that
so
one
the
more
way
time.
that I was thinking about it is that there's a ratio of the amount of communication and consciousness it takes to do something based off of the amount of money that you get.
Say that one more time.
One more time. So basically, there's a ratio between how you communicate,
Stop right there. How
mhm,
you what?
communicate,
Bingo. Josh, that's
just that communication.
the third highest thing that you and I can do is communication.
Hmm.
Now, if I told you the average person on the second tier, college degree, trade, a form of higher skill, is make between 70, 80,000 to low six figures, mid six figures, maybe even touching maybe seven figures, and that's an outlier. 'Cause we're talking about CEO or something of that nature, right?
Hmm.
But if I say communication trump all that, what are we talking about?
Yeah, what type of communication?
It's many different forms of communications,
Yeah.
and we're doing one of them.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you something. Whether you agree with it or not, but why do I believe and know communication is the third highest level of occupation of getting paid? Now,
Why?
once I
Tell me.
you take a guess though,
Say that one more time.
why is communication is the third highest a form of getting paid? And
The
there's a lot of unique characteristics why that's the case.
the two words that just come to mind is relationship and connection.
You're getting close.
Okay.
Let me say this to help steer the mindset.
Hmm.
Communication is what I'm doing now. It penetrates from one zip code to the next zip code to the next state, over beyond a whole nother country. Are you tracking? Just by speaking on a podcast.
Hmm. I'm thinking just the way to connect. Like,
So yes,
you're getting like I'm feeling it.
okay. Watch
Tone.
this. Watch this. Me communicating, watch this, takes no effort.
Yeah, really. It really doesn't at the end of the day when you think about
I,
it. It
I,
only when you think too hard is when you,
this is something that's going to help all of us out.
yeah.
The first two, what was it? Number one, the first step in life in the entry level of workforce
Hands,
is
doing things
hands.
with your hands tactical.
Not only is tactical, is what? Time consuming
Hmm.
and it's rigorous.
Okay.
Same thing of going to school, getting good grades, learning what you're learning, yada, yada, yada. And then go do you know like why people who works on the bottom level don't understand why the people who don't seem to do anything but push paper and fire people? Why people say, well, why are they making more money than me actually out here working hard with my hands and feet? You
Hmm.
wanna know why? Because managing people is stressful.
Yeah.
It's more difficult. You go in, you got paperwork. You
Hmm.
got to worry about people pay scales. You got to worry about people. It's just a lot of work
Hmm.
from going from the we call being in the field, then being in the office or the administrative side. It's tedious. It's taxing. It's stressful.
Hmm.
But communication is less stressful.
Hmm.
It's less work. The next two, we just talked about communication, and then the fourth, the highest level,
Yeah.
believe it or not, it takes less effort. It, it is effort. It's just less effort. And watch this, and you get the biggest paycheck. Think of it. If I'm a rapper,
Hmm.
I go into a booth like this, probably takes me, if you're really good, I think they said Tupac took him probably, it took him probably three, maybe a whole day to do a whole album.
Hmm.
He's in the studio, he's drinking, having fun. He's creating what? Content.
Hmm.
He's speaking in the mic like I'm doing,
Yeah.
and he's what? Putting it into.
Saying it. Yeah. I'm gonna try to guess one more time because we're running out of time. I want to guess
Okay,
one more time.
gotcha.
I think the only thing that I can think, but it takes all of it for all of the levels that you're saying. But the only thing that I think, besides self, and like individualism, I'm just thinking energy.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta have energy on all
Or
levels.
am I riling back?
I don't know.
What
I'm
was
not,
the fourth? What was the
I never
fourth?
mentioned the fourth.
Oh, I thought you said fourth level.
No, it is fourth level. I never mentioned it. We're still on
Okay.
third, which is communication. And it was
Mhm.
giving you an example of one aspect of communicating and having content as being a performer. Right?
Okay.
I mean, Chris Brown, if he does a show a day, he makes probably 2 to 300,000. I mean, he's a top level performer, but
Mhm.
he makes, you know, probably 2 or 3 million a
Yeah.
show
Mhm.
just dancing, which is a form of content, and expressing himself through a mic, which is by singing.
Yeah.
You have people, and this like Myron Golden, he gets paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to show up. Like, what was the gentleman that came here?
Brennan?
Brendan.
Yeah.
Get paid to speak on something that he knows and learns to be able to express to his audience. Actually, I had my first speaking engagement, which was several years ago. And I was just like, that's weird. They're gonna pay me to speak on something. I was talking about how do minorities, how do they start their business?
Mhm.
I said, oh, that's up my wheelhouse. That's easy. Got a check. Now it wasn't hundreds of thousands of checks, but the point here is people pay for you to speak of something that you love and something that you speak on every day.
Yeah.
So the fourth thing, um, the highest level, the absolute highest level
Mhm.
of in the workforce, in the four tiers of the workforce, as far as being able to have an occupation and get paid. Take one snap at it. What do you think it is? We have general labor, working with your hands. You have skill in education
Mhm.
or getting a license or a trade or working for a corporation or a company.
Mhm.
Then you have communication, which we gave two examples of a form of communication of getting paid, speaking
Yeah.
and being a performer.
Number four,
Has something to do with your mind.
in planning.
Got it. It's close.
What is it?
Being able to have imagination,
Mm. Oh, okay.
to create. See, by creating by your imagination, it's endless, it's
Mhm.
untapped. But what also makes it more beautiful about creating something that guess what it belongs to?
Me.
You.
Mhm.
No one can dictate what you have imagined and have created. No one can put a value on what that means to you because it's your imagination. In fact, one of the things you hear me was talking earlier is that's the one thing that they're robbing us,
Yeah.
been robbing us, is they don't want us to think. They don't want us to have imagination.
I can see that.
See, they really want you on the first two tiers. Why?
Uh,
That is, they want to be able to control you.
oh, okay.
They want to dominate
It's a
you.
control aspect.
And remember what I said, though. It's nothing wrong. I just want to say for the viewers on Zoom, when you hear this podcast, I'm saying in a sense, if we're not happy with what we're doing,
Mhm.
if we're feeling like we're not getting hit, this is why.
Mhm.
It's nothing wrong with being a hard worker. You should be a hard worker. Bible says someone who doesn't work is worse than a infidel.
Okay.
So working is not the issue. And then of course getting a degree. I'm all for education.
Mhm.
I'm all for getting the skill. I'm just simply saying, wanting the viewers to understand that there's a tier and it's universal
Mhm.
and it's been set in stone since the beginning of time. And all I'm just saying is we're not aware of it because it's never been explained.
Yeah.
That's all.
Dang. Well, I appreciate you coming in and explaining that to
Yeah.
us. Explaining it to me. I
Yeah.
mean, wow. That's
Yeah.
good to know. How can people get in touch with you to talk a little bit more about this?
I got website, www.cutz with a Z, cutsandrestore.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. Instagram is T2369. I'm sorry. It's T Cuts and Restore 18. That's my Instagram. And then, of course, Facebook, you can just look at the shop, which is Cuts and Restore Images, or you can look at my other Facebook, and that is Home Investment Group. That's the real estate side of it. And so, yeah, Like I said, I'm beginning to do more podcasts as we talked about earlier before we got on live, is that I'm amping up the marketing and amping up of creating content and
Yeah.
YouTube videos and podcasts.
I'm excited. You got a
Yeah.
number that people can reach you by as well?
Yeah, you can reach me at my personal cell phone number is 540-455-8239. And then of course you can call direct to the shop, barbershop, if you need a good haircut. Please feel free to give me a call. And that's 540-374-2369. Again, our website is www.cutz, Cutz, restoreimages.com. So yes, so we're part of BBB, and so like I said, we'll have more content, more things coming out. So yeah, come check us out.
So
Yeah.
thank you for coming. Anyone who's following right now, make sure to follow us on YouTube and Spotify, BBB Central SenVA, and then also Ignite Spark by BBB. We've got LinkedIn, Facebook. Come into any of our events, and hope to see you guys there. Bye bye.
Ignite, sparked by BBB, where conversations are taking place to change the future.